In this video, we'll talk about the volume of solids. So first, what does it mean? The volume is the quantity of space that an object occupied. So the units we're going to use centimeter cubes or meter cubes most of the time. It could be bigger, but that's what we're going to use most of the time. What about the capacity? The capacity is the volume of liquid that a container can hold. So what we're going to use for capacity is milliliters or liters most of the time. What's the most important for you to remember is how to go from one to the other. So you have to remember that 1 decimeter cube is 1 liter. You can also remember about 1 milliliter, it's 1 centimeter cube. Okay, and that's how we would convert from one to the next. What do we have to remember about prisms and cylinders? Well, first, a prism is a polyhedron with two parallel and congruent bases. So that's what you have to remember. There's one base here and there's one base in the back, and they're both the same. They're congruent. So the base is not necessarily what is at the bottom. It's the shape that is repeated twice. Okay? So in here we have two bases, and I should write congruent so you remember congruent bases. On the side here, oh no, sorry. So between your two congruent bases, what's important is here we have the height. So the height is the distance between the two bases. That's really important for you to remember. The height is not necessarily going up. It's really the distance between the two bases. And finally, on the side here, we have 4 lateral faces that are parallelograms. And most of the time they're rectangles, right? But you have to remember that rectangles are parallelograms. So that's by definition what a prism is, and a cylinder is the same thing except the base is a circle. Now, how do we calculate the volume of that? What we're going to do is we're going to calculate the area of the base. So we're going to calculate the area of the base here, and then we're going to times that by the height. The height means here, between the two bases. Okay, so you have to remember to find the volume, we have to calculate area of the base times the height. Okay, and so in this case, if we calculate the volume of this shape, to calculate the area of the base is a square, so we're going to do 4 times 4, and times the height, that is 10. That's going to give us 4 times 4 is 16, times 10 is 160, and there's no unit, so when there's no unit, it's going to be unit cube. Okay? Now, what is the base going to be when you have prisms? It can be different shapes, so this is a reminder of the different formulas that you might have to use as the base. Now, what if you have to find the volume of this solid? What would you have to do? I suggest you start with your formula. Okay, so volume equals area of the base times the height. So volume is equal, and the area of the base here, what is the base? When you have a rectangular prism, it can be different base because you need to find a shape that is repeated twice. So I'm going to use this one, okay? This shape is repeated twice. So when I do my calculation area of the base, I'm going to do 3 times 4, area of the base, times the height. My height is 5. So the volume is going to be 3 times 4 is 12, times 5 is 60. And we have centimeters, so don't forget your unit. We're going to have centimeter cubes. For the second example, I'm going to use a triangular prism. How do I know it's a triangular prism? Because I'm looking at the base. The base is the shape that is repeated twice, and in this case, it's a triangle. So the triangle is repeated twice, and you have the height here, that's the distance between your two bases. So let's start with the formula. volume is equal to area of the base times the height. Here the base, we said it's a triangle. How do we calculate the area of a triangle? It's base times height, and then we divide it by 2. So be careful, this is the height of the triangle, and the other one is the height of the prism. Okay, so you have to pay attention, it's not the same thing. Now, how do we find the height of the triangle? Well, we already know that this is 5 here. We know this is 2 because it's half of 4. We need to find the height. So we're going to need to use Pythagorean theorem. We're going to do 2 square plus height square has to equal 5 square. 2 square is 4. We're looking for a height, and that equals 5 square, which is 25. To find our height, we need to get rid of the 4. So what do we have to do? Minus 4 on both sides. So h squared is going to be equal to 21. How do we find h? We square root. So square root of 21. Now square root of 21, if you do that on your calculator, did you get a precise value? Not really, huh? So we're going to leave it like that. Okay? Maybe I'm going to write it more, I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to use my pen to make it look more like square root of 21. Okay, so if I'm back here to my formula, I want to find the area of the base. So the area of the base is base times height. The height is square root of 21. And usually we would divide that by 2, right? When we do the area of a triangle, is base times height divided by 2. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to come here and divide by 2. So here we divide by 2. And the height, remember here, the height, this is the height of the prism. So the height of the prism is the distance between the two bases. So in this case, it's going to be 10. Okay. So I'm back in my formula. Volume is equal to 4 times square root of 21. Now you can use your calculator to figure it out. Divided by 2 and then times 10, you get 91.65. And what's the unit? Centimeter cube. Okay. The next one, you have to find the diameter. So the diameter is this of a cylinder that has a volume of, oh, so we know the volume. Hold on, I'm gonna write it here. We know the volume and we know the height. So let's start with our formula. Volume is area of the base times the height. So we know the volume is 1178.1. That equals area of the base. We don't know. Or what formula is it to find the area of the base? I'm going to write it here. Our base is a circle, right? The base, remember, the base is the shape that is repeated twice. So that's our base. So the area of the base is pi times r exponent 2. Okay, so when you come back in your formula here, area of the base, you can write pi times r exponent 2. And then times the height, and the height is the distance between your two bases. Now it's getting more complicated because we're looking for r. See, we're looking for r here. So what we're going to do, we need to get rid of everything that's around it. What I'll do, I'll just put I'll put it the square like this so it's easier to see. So we have r square. Okay, so what are we going to do? This is times pi times 15. So we need to get rid of this. So to get rid of divide, to get rid of multiply, we divide. So we're going to divide by pi, and we're going to divide also by 15. So we have to do that on both sides. We're going to divide by pi, and we're going to divide by 15. So we're going to be left with 1178.1 divided by pi. You can write equal, and then we divide it by 15. Or if you want, you can do 1178.1 divide, and you can put a bracket here if you want. So you should end up with 25. And that is equal to our r square. Okay, but we want to just get r, right? So to get rid of a square root on both sides. So r is equal to 5. Now make sure you read your question well, right? The question is find the diameter. So diameter is 2 times the radius. We know the radius, right? So d is equal to 2 times 5, and that equals 10 centimeters. So we figured out the diameter. Let's continue with pyramids and cones. Now, if you watch the little video, you'll see that there's 3 times a pyramid in a cylinder. So it's going to look like the other formula we had before, which was area of the base times the height, but we're going to have to divide by 3. So whenever you have pyramids and cones, you have to make sure you divide by 3. That's really important. So when you're going to have to find, for example, here, the volume of a square base pyramid that has a side of 3 and a height of 10, the first thing I suggest you do is draw your shape. Okay, so it's a square base pyramid. You can do it quickly. It doesn't have to be super nice, as long as you have all your information. There's a side of 3 centimeter and a height of 10. The height starts from the middle to the top. The height is 10 centimeter. And then we're going to need to find the volume. So the volume is equal to area of the base times the height, but we have to divide by 3. Okay, so we have to divide by 3. Now let's change with the value that we have. The volume is equal area of the base. The base is a square, so a square is easy. 3 times 3 times the height, that is 10, and we're going to have to divide that by 3. You can see right away, if we have to times by 3 and divide by 3, we can just simplify. So 3 times 10, we get 30, and our unit would be centimeter cube. Okay, so that's for a basic volume. Now, if you have a cone, okay, well, let's draw the cone. Find the volume of a cone. Okay, so volume of a cone, you have a radius of 5 and apothem of 13. So let's draw your cone. That's your height. So here you have your height, and this is your apothem, and this is your radius. Okay, so we know the radius is equal to 5 centimeters, and we know the apothem is 13 centimeters. And we're looking for the volume. So let's start with our formula. Volume is equal to area of the base times the height divided by 3. Divided by 3. Okay, so volume is area of the base. It's a circle, so the area of the base is pi times radius square times the height. Oh, we don't have the height. Okay, so we're not going to need to come here and calculate the height. Let's come down here to find the height. What are we going to do to find the height? Well, we can see there's a triangle here. You see there's a right angle triangle, like here. Good, so we can use the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so we can use h squared plus 5 squared is equal to 13 squared. Well, h squared we don't know. Plus 5 squared, that's 25, and that equals to 13 squared, 169. Now we need to get rid of the 25, so we need to do minus 25 on each side. So we're going to get there. Minus, h squared is equal to 144. And how do we get rid of the square? We would square root. So if we square root on both sides, square root here, we're going to get h is equal to 12. So now we know the height. Does it make sense that it's 12? Well, yeah, because it's smaller. See, this is 13, so it makes sense that the other one is 12. Always check if your answer makes sense, okay? Because if you get 24, let's say it doesn't work, we would know. So let's go back to our formula, pi r squared times the height, and all that divided by 3. So we're going to need to take our calculator at this point. Oops. Take our calculator. Pi times 5 squared, which is 25, times 12 divided by 3. You should get 314.16 centimeter cube. Don't forget to write your units. Okay? And the last one is, what's the height of a square base pyramid? So let's draw it. A square base pyramid. You know why I'm in math, huh? Because I'm not too good of a drawer. There's a minimum that we need to be able to do. And the height is this measure that goes in the middle. Okay, that's the height. Oh, I'm going to call it here. That's my height. And you have a side of 4 centimeters. And we know we have a volume of 32 centimeter cube. So let's start with the formula of the volume. Volume is equal to area of the base times the height divided by 3. Always start with your formula, so that way we know what you're doing. Okay? This is your formula. The volume we know is 32. So 32 is equal to, what's the area of the base? The base here is a square, so the area of a square is 4 times 4. Times the height, we don't know. And all of that has to be divided by 3. So, what do we do to get our h here? We want to find our h here. Okay, so I'm gonna write, to get rid of divided by 3, we need to do times 3, right? And that's gonna cancel out, so we need to do times 3 on the other side. And here you have 4 times 4. If you want, you can write it like this. That's 16h. And 3 times 32 is 96. So now you have 96 equals 16h. How do you get your h alone? Okay, remember we are looking for h here. So 16h means 16 times h. So we need to divide on both sides by 16. And we would get h is equal to 6. And that's 6 centimeters. Okay, so we're almost done. 2 more on a sphere. The sphere is a little easier. You have one formula for the sphere. Make sure that you don't get mixed up. Find the volume of a sphere that has a diameter of 15. If there's a diameter of 15, the radius is equal to 15 divided by 2, right? So the radius is 7.5 centimeter. We want to find the volume. So we have the formula up there. I'm not going to write it again. So we have to do 4 times pi times the radius exponent 3 and all of this divided by 3. All of this we divided by 3. So we would find that our volume is equal to 1767.15. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredths centimeter cube. So that is easy. We just apply the formula, you plug in the number, and you're done. Now if we have to go the other way around, okay, let's say they're giving you the volume, you know the volume, but we want to find the radius. So again, we're going to start with our formula. Okay, we're going to start with our formula, and we know the volume. So the volume is 2144.66 is equal to 4 pi r cube, oops, sorry for my cube, divided by 3. We're looking for r. We need to find r. Okay, so how do you get rid of divided by 3 here? You need to times by 3, and they're going to cancel out. So you need on the other side to times by 3 as well. And how do you get rid of this? You need to divide by 4 pi on both sides. If you divide here by 4 pi, this is going to cancel out with this. So we're left with r cubed is equal to, take your calculator, try that, 3 times 2144.66 divided by 4 pi. You need to put your bracket if you want to keep it like that. You could put a bracket here. You should get 512. This is r cubed. How do you get rid of r cubed? You can do, we're not going to do square root, we're going to do cubic root. So you should see that on your calculator. Or to get rid of this, you can do exponent 1/3. If it's easier for you, you can also do 512 exponent 1/3, and that's going to work also. You should end up with r is equal to 8 centimeter. So I hope now you're good to do the exercises. If you have any question, come back to class and ask your question. Have fun!